Harvard study, and I think it's one of the longest studies that has ever been done. It started in the 1930s. So starting in the 1930s, it was all men. They started surveying 700 men and have followed them through their life. There are now 60 of those 700 who are still alive. They're in their 90s, and they're continuing the study. And they say one of the reasons why these long studies don't tend not to work is because you need someone to carry on the studies, because people pass on, and so someone else has to take on. So the person who was sharing about it, he was the fourth head of the study, and they've been able to continue it going all these years. And he says, we ask everything. We sit down, we talk with them, we talk with their spouse, their children, we take brain scans, we just, on all levels, we're just getting to know, and we visit them year after year. One of the amusing aspects, so they had two groups that they were studying at the same time. One was a group of sophomores at Harvard, and then the other group were people from the poorest area in Boston. They were economically deprived, lots of challenges, sort of the lower economic status. And so they took both groups and they followed them both for all these years. And they said one of the more amusing facts is they would ask these questions. It's like 7 decades, they're all these years later, and they continue to ask questions. And these people from this Boston neighborhood said, "Why do you just keep asking me these questions? I'm just not that interesting a person." So we get that question all the time. He said, but we never got that question from the Harvard students. Sense of their own worth. Of course we're interesting to study. Of course you want to ask us questions. Just an interesting little thing, but ultimately how they felt about why they were being asked made no difference. Because he said after however many decades this has been that they've been asking these questions, and again, they have people in their 90s, he said we have tens of thousands of papers of all these surveys and exploration with these people, and he said the element of what makes someone happy was so clear. It wasn't even close. Was not even close. That what made people the happiest is relationship. And he said it was interesting because they had a study just a few years, relatively speaking, very recently with millennials about what they wanted from life. 80% said what they really want is a lot of money. 80%. The next was fame, and the next was high achievement. And to me, high achievement is in some way another way of saying power, because when you have high achievement, people respect you and value you and think you're important. So money, fame, and high achievement, the big three that have always been there, that's what young people want. And what they were saying from this study is that ultimately those things, whether you were from Harvard or from a lower socioeconomic neighborhood in Boston, it did not matter. What made a life deeply happy and fulfilling were the quality of people's relationships, bar none. He said it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't close. What was interesting as I was listening to him, now this is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and what was so interesting is he was trying to explain the type of relationships that were so deeply fulfilling, and he spent a lot of time, and I'm listening to him, I'm like, just say it, and he never said it. Love, he didn't want to, coming from the world that I come from, that's typical, you don't want to use love because that's too sort of sentimental or a little bit corny, or, you're just a little wishy-washy. You want to use solid, quality words. But what we know is that it's the relationships that we experience profound love that make them quality relationships. So it doesn't matter what the relationships are. Do we feel pure and powerful love in that connection? And it's that power of that love that is what gives our life the deepest meaning, the deepest sense of fulfillment, and the deepest joy. It's so simple. It's so simple. Now, in the weekly email, I invited you all to imagine if you were going to create in your head what the greatest love story ever told would look like. What would be some elements? And I just asked you just to imagine that. So just as I'm sharing, I'm play along with me. So I was thinking about the greatest love stories, and then I cheated. Well, first of all, I was just thinking challenges. If there's like a challenge and then people come together, yes. And then I was like, well, I just looked up greatest love story ever told. I Googled it. If when in doubt, Google. Don't look within, Google. No, I'm kidding. So I want to say the answers seem to mirror my own demographics. So I didn't get answers that maybe in South America you would get, or in Africa, or in Asia. My answers were very Western, United States, European. And what they shared as the greatest love stories ever told were the movies that we're familiar with, Casablanca, a lot of movies that are based on romantic novels like Pride and Prejudice. I don't know, Wuthering Heights. I must be interested in this area since I had read and seen every one of them but one. Sense and Sensibility. And so I was looking at these stories that people consider the greatest love stories, and there's always a challenge. There's always some drama. It's not just people who meet, fall in love, and just live this blissful life for all eternity. There's challenges, and it's the challenges that are interesting to watch, or even The Notebook. That was another one, Notebook. It's the challenges that make it interesting. And then then something happens, there's a resolution. So Casablanca, for instance, you have Rick, who's in love with this, I can't remember what her name is, Lisa maybe? I'm just gonna call her Lisa. I don't think that's her name. Elsa. Elsa, is that what you said? Elsa, Ingrid Bergman, and Humphrey Bogart. And so he's in love with her, but he feels betrayed by her because she abandoned him, and she comes back with her husband, and he's being chased by the Nazis. And so the question is Rick or Humphrey Bogart going to save Ingrid and her husband from the Nazis? And he's not quite so sure because he feels betrayed. Then she confesses that she's always loved him. She didn't leave him because she did not loved him, but she thought her husband was dead and he wasn't dead. I'm just reviewing in case if you haven't seen it in the last 50 years. And so then her husband wasn't dead, so she went to go take care of him, but they still love each other. And so from that place of love, now he's willing to maybe do something nice, although now he's thinking of getting rid of her husband, and the two of them get saved. So you never know. There's always a tension. How's this going to resolve? And at the very end, love wins out. He gets the plane ticket he sends off Elsa and her husband, Laszlo, right? I got that name because it was easy. He saves them. He's altruistic, selfless. His love is selfless. He loves her more than he loves himself, or not love more than love. He recognizes that his highest love is her highest love. He can't live from his highest love if she's not living from her highest love. So he supports her. He even shoots the Nazi guy from killing him. And that's considered one of the greatest love stories, because he was selfless in his love. He was true and genuine in his love. I did like the movie. I didn't consider it one of my favorite love stories because I like consummation at the end. I like it when the two main characters come together. So the one that stuck out for me was Sense and Sensibility, because I had written a paper on it in high school. And then when I saw the movie, it's terrible because I wrote the paper and I'm just remembering. I can't remember. If anyone happens to remember the names of the characters, great. I'm just going to call them by the actors and actresses. Emma Thompson falls in love with Hugh Grant. And Hugh Grant seems to fall in love with her, but then suddenly he's off. She thinks he's married to some other woman, and she's devastated. The love of her life is now married. It's not a possibility. And at the end of the movie, he walks in. Turns out he's not married. It's all a misunderstanding, and he's in love with her, and now they're going to spend happy together. And you just see just like she can't believe this good is happening to her. After she had grieved and just grieved and let it go because it was so painful that she knew she couldn't be with the love of her life, and then to suddenly realize, I actually get to be with the love of my life. And you just feel it. And so I always cry. I know the story so well, and I cry every time. Emma Thompson is a good actress. So it's that feeling of separation and then coming back together in union, right? And so we know this on the spiritual path, that there's no greater love in the universe, in the cosmos, than this divine love. Nothing comes even close, to this divine love. Nothing. No human love. In fact, one of the things I thought when I was looking at all those titles, I'm like, boy, that's weird that that's considered the greatest love story, because God's love is so much greater than this. And we haven't captured it yet, because you can't really capture it. And we know that. I think intuitively we all know that. So there's this, all of us are on this spiritual journey because there's a seeking to come back to this communion of knowing the greatest love on earth, this divine love that is within us. So the infinite cosmos, this presence that created the billions and billions of galaxies and is orchestrated in this divine order beyond what we could ever humanly imagine, everything that's happening in the world past billions of years, in the past, front, future, all time, all space, multi-dimensions of time, space. And it's all of it, and it's right there inside of our heart. It's right here. That's the extraordinary miracle that we live with, that we're on this journey to know the greatest love that has ever been, and it's right here in the midst of us. And yet, even knowing that, we can still feel separate from it. Not only can we, I think we do feel separate from it. We know it, so one of the things we do in our teaching is to constantly call it forth. There's one power, one presence, one love. I am one with this love, all the love that has ever been. I am one with, and I can start to feel it as I'm talking, but then I go into prayer, and then I go on to my life, and then there's just me. There's not me in the cosmic love. And so it's about this returning to this incredible cosmic communion of one love. That's the journey we're on. That's the greatest love story that we're already participating in today and have been. But we have challenges, just like in the movies, just like Emma Thompson had her challenges. We all have our challenges. So we look at what was needed in those stories, and one of the things that's needed is patience. Okay, so what we know, and this is, granted, these are fictional stories, but they're true a lot of times, that not everything comes good all at once. If you're watching a Meg Ryan romantic comedy, you know the good's not going to happen for 3/4 of the movie. You just, patience. You still show up. So it's patience and showing up. You're never going to experience that love if you don't show up. Even when you don't feel the love, even when you feel separate. You all know this in relationship of any type, whether it's with your kids, with your loved partner, your parents. There are days you do not feel love. You don't feel it towards them, or you don't feel the love of them towards you, but you still show up, right? Because you know that's what love does. Even when you don't feel it, even when you're not like in this blissful communion of that great big moment, you still show up. So when we are participating in the greatest love story ever told, we show up. We have patience. It often takes a long time for us to experience it. I just read this quote from Yogananda. No matter how many times you fail, he said, just try another time. Just never give up. Just keep going. Patience. The spiritual journey is this journey of patience. You might have these amazing moments, and then you feel like you regress. And then you have an amazing moment, and then you regress. Patience. We keep at it. We keep exploring. Because this is the greatest love story ever told, and every one of us are participating in it right now. We show up. And it's repetition. So you have those big moments of falling in love with somebody, or you have a moment with your child, and you're just like, oh, there couldn't be anything more precious. But then there's everyday life. And so what we do is we cultivate practices every day that bring forth our awareness that the greatest love of all ever told is today in this moment, whether I feel it or not. And the way I step into that is by doing my spiritual practices every day, whether I feel like it or not. Whether I feel the connection. I sit in meditation, I take that one seat, even if I don't feel it, even if so many times my mind, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. I'm in the greatest love story ever told. We are in the greatest love story ever told. We show up. We do those practices, and they are repetitive. They are repetitive. They are repetitive. That's one of the greatest blessings I got reading Shunryu Suzuki's Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. He really talks about the power of repetition, and that at first it seems really special, but then it seems like nothing special, and that's when we really get clear on the practices. Consistent practices. We come to church. Whether you're going here, you go to another spiritual community, whatever it is, we do it, and we do it as much as we can. Why? Am I really saying anything that you don't already know? No. Basically, anyone who's talking about spiritual principle are saying the same thing over and over, trying to find new ways to say it, cool new stories, but really the same thing over and over. Why? Because this world is so dense, energetically dense. We can't change that. It's heavy, and it's really strong. It's really strong. It really has this incredible gravitational pull, pulling us down and making us think that really the greatest love story ever told, we have to wait till we die and go to the other side of the veil before we experience it, because we can't experience it while we're here. Everything on this earth, energetically, not everything, there's a lot though, just look at the news, of incredible density. So we need each other, whatever our spiritual communities are, every day, whatever groups you're part of, classes you're part of, all of it is just this constant reminder. Know that we're going to stand in the truth of the ever-present love that is always here and right now. I am participating. We are participating in the greatest love story ever told. We are constantly reminding each other through music, through art, through stories, through every channel that we can, to remind ourselves who we are and why we are here, our magnificent love story that we are involved in. We are involved in the greatest love story ever told, and we are not going to forget. We are not going to let the world hypnotize us into believing that's not true. So we do the same things over. It seems like repetition, but it's powerful. I was listening to an actor, I think it was Denzel Washington. He was talking about doing a play. And the thing about plays, you're doing 8 performances a week upon week upon week. So they're saying the exact same lines, having the exact same thing. There's nothing new. There's nothing imaginative. Maybe once in a while we'll do a little improv. But in general, they're saying the same words over and over, day after day, week after week, month after month, with the intention of lifting up the audience. But if they just go into automatic pilot, they will not do that. So every time they do it, it has to be made new, as if they've never said it before. They show up because they know they're telling a story that, even though it's been repeated and repeated and repeated, every time it's told, it's alive, it's extraordinary. And then he also was saying, I was like in my 60th performance, and I was doing this scene. Oh no, it was Ethan Hawke who was saying this. I was trying to figure out who it was. And he was saying, and suddenly, I said, I just couldn't get the scene down. I kept doing it, and of course I'm doing it, but then suddenly I got it. I got what this scene is about. That's part of the repetition. The repetition is actually, seems like we're doing the same thing over and over, but every time we're doing it, it's new. Every time we're sitting down to meditation, it's new. It's not yesterday's meditation. It's not tomorrow's meditation. It's new today. Every time we come to any type of Sunday service, even though you've heard it before, it's new today. Every time it's new, and when we open to that freshness and the newness that is constantly happening, suddenly there's going to be a moment where we go even deeper in our communion with Spirit. Something shifts in this greatest love story ever told, and we feel it. We feel the power of it. So we need patience. We need repetition, and most of all, we need forgiveness. Just as the moment when Humphrey Bogart, I'm just going to do the actors, Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, when they professed their love for each other, they thought the love was gone, and they professed their love to each other. Everything melts. The love was always there, but the forgiveness happened. oh, the love was always here, but I didn't see it. So I felt I was being betrayed, so I was acting from a place that I am being betrayed. We sometimes believe this divine love is punishing us, or it is withholding its love from us, or it's trying to teach us a lesson because it doesn't love us, because we're not good enough in some way, so it's going to teach us something. Those are old beliefs. So we need to step into forgiveness and to know, and for me, forgiveness is one of the greatest ways to know how extraordinary this love is, because this presence can forgive things that we might consider unforgivable. I'll never forget, Reverend Mark Anthony was here, I think 2016, and he gave a talk on forgiveness. I still remember it. And he did a workshop on forgiveness, very powerful. And I remember in the workshop, he was saying that sometimes we have excuses of why we can't forgive, and so he asked people to give reasons why they won't forgive. And they were all great, loved every one of them, and then he gave the final one. That's unacceptable. We will forgive everything until that one thing, and they're like, well, that's unacceptable. I was just reading this morning about St. Porphyrios, and he was in this moment of ecstasy and just loving the Divine Mother and pouring his heart out to her and being humble. And as he's in this intense, sustained, intense moment, he feels her light upon him as he's bowing his head in humility and feels her grace just pouring onto him. And just in that moment, a man steps out of the woods and says, can you help me? And he said, what's the matter? And he said, I killed somebody back in America. This was on Mount Athos, and I'm escaping the police. They're here, and they're looking for me. He says, I know what I did wrong, and he confessed everything, and he repented. And he said, and he was truly repentant, and he said, and I did do this thing. I can't. And so St. Porphyrios, feeling the power of the Divine Mother, just forgave him in that moment. He left, the police came, and they said, have you seen this gentleman? He said, no, I have not seen him. Because the gentleman they were looking for was a murderer. The gentleman he saw was an innocent being of God. Human beings cannot do that. At least I don't have that much generosity of my heart. You know, I like detective shows. I want them to get the bad guys, the murderers. We want the bad guys to be locked up. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm not getting into a whole thing. I'm just saying that the divine works in ways that human beings don't. That there is a level when someone is truly repentant. They're repentant meaning sorry, truly sorry. Not just sorry because for public display, but in their deepest heart. And Spirit knows what he was experiencing was the Divine Mother knew this man's heart and said, he's forgiven. He's felt what he's done. He knows he's forgiven. I had to read that a couple times, like, wow, the Divine Mother's just forgiving someone who murdered somebody? Like, that's what divine love is. It's so beyond our human hearts, our own ability to do something. When Reverend Mark was here talking about forgiveness, he was sharing an experience he had as a child of being abused. And then he talked about his journey of forgiveness. And again, he was in India. It was a big spiritual experience. It wasn't of him, and it all just dissolved, and it was gone. It was like it never happened. He felt no more blame, no more anger. It was done. He became free. That which was unacceptable was forgiven in spirit. I didn't forget that one. Oh, wow. Because I definitely have my places of that's unacceptable. In the human realm, that is unacceptable. There are things that we can't even begin to understand about this love of pure spirit. It is the greatest love story ever told. There are places, my bet would be in all of us, that are hiding out that we feel like we've done something that is unforgivable. We may not be aware of it. Or maybe even it's something small. You said something mean about something behind somebody's back. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Do we really believe we're forgiven? In that moment, when we realize we did something wrong, do we feel like we have to do a ton of penance? That was one of the things I learned. That in Orthodox teaching, you don't have to do, you repent, you say you're sorry, and then you accept that you're forgiven. You don't have to do penance like that. The belief is that you're forgiven the moment you are authentically sorry and deeply repentant about what you did. The spiritual realm hears that in our heart and forgives. How can we move fresh into the new moment if we're carrying all this stuff towards ourself of little things and big things because we don't really believe in the greatest love story ever told? That this love is so much greater than anything we could ever humanly know, ever. I've told you a million times, I was in love with my family, in my journals all the time. They're so great. I love my parents. I love my brothers. I just always love love. So when I had the experience of divine love, it was a shock that my love for my family, as big as I thought it was nothing compared to this divine love. It is truly wordless, but it is the most important love story of which we are participating in every day. So it's worthy of showing up. It's worthy of being patient. It's worthy of constant repetition, of being consistent in our repetition. Treya Wilbur had a huge impact on me, changed my life. I was doing my spiritual practices regularly, but they would go off and on. And I was reading her book. She had cancer, and it's the book Grace and Grit with her, and it's her journal entries are throughout the book with Ken Wilber. And through her, as she's going through all her breast cancer treatments, she's doing both Western medicine and holistic stuff. She's doing a lot of spiritual stuff. They knew each other from the spiritual path, doing all this stuff. And it's a long book, so it's about 3/4 of the way through. It always seems to be 3/4 of the way through. I'm noticing there's a shift in her. And I'm rereading it, and I'm like, she suddenly made the realization that, I'm doing this work, but I'm only doing it sporadically. I do it, and then I stop, and then I do it, and then I stop. What would happen if I just did it every single day? Like I stopped giving myself excuses and did it every single day. And she started doing it every single day. And as I'm reading, and it wasn't a big thing, it wasn't made huge deal in the book, but as I'm reading, I'm just seeing her change in her journal writing and how she's showing up. I'm like, wow. That's what happens when you do it every day. And that's what shifted me from the idea of it's okay to do my spiritual practices once in a while or off and on to if I really am participating in the greatest love story ever told, if I really believe that, I'm going to show up every day. Consistency. And lastly, intensity. As I've been reading all these different spiritual teachers from different paths, and everyone has their different practices, there's Zen and mindfulness meditation and Kriya Yoga and yoga. There's just millions of different practices. Prayer, obviously. What type of prayer? Do we do this type of prayer? Do we do that? There's a million techniques. Actually, someone was saying we're up into the multi-millions right now of techniques to wake up. So we can get really attached to the technique. But the thing that is becoming so clear to me is that the people who are really connecting to this greatest love story ever told is they feel intensely, whatever their practice is. So I have Yogananda who's doing his Kriya Yoga, and I have St. Porphyrios who's doing his prayers and liturgy. Two totally different traditions, but they both have this incredible intensity, consistency and intensity. And I don't mean intensity like external intensity, like people feel, I mean this deep intensity, like I am going to know this presence. I'm going to give myself to this presence. When St. Porphyrios had this experience with Divine Mother, he was immersed in hours of just total and complete intense love for this presence. He was giving and giving and giving this love until this light came. I was just at Self-Realization yesterday. I didn't realize it was his birthday, so they had a 6-hour silent meditation. I only made it 3 hours. But it reminds me, there's no substitute. Just to sit there, just to sit in the presence and meditation hour after hour. There's no substitute. I could talk all day long. I could give a talk for 3 hours effortlessly. I am not going to get into the same place I can get if I just be still. Doesn't mean I don't have thoughts going on, but that doesn't matter. I take the one seat in the midst of the thoughts, in the midst of the pain, because I'd never been to this. It was at a church, and there's pews, and the back was killing me because it was sticking in my back, and my feet never touched the ground. I'm too short. It's a big continual problem for us short people. So I had never been to this place, so I didn't physically, wasn't settled. So my body started to go in a lot of pain. But this is the greatest love story ever told. I'm not leaving. I made a commitment to the divine that I was going to be there, and I am going to be there no matter how much pain I'm in. I'm going, and it was so worth it. It is so worth it. Every single time I am reminded, oh, this truly is the greatest love story ever told. And we can't capture it with words, but we can capture it with who we are, with showing up, with our intensity, with our consistency, with our patience, and with that constant repetition and practice. We are in the greatest love story ever told right now. Ernest Holmes talks to us about we can only know as much good, and I'm going to use love. We can only know as much love as the love that moves through us. You, Jerry, can know all the love in the world, but that's what Jerry knows. I can only know as much love as that moves through me. Every one of us is responsible. That's sometimes why this teaching can be hard for people. There's no other person who can do this for us. We are responsible. This love is moving through us. We have to do the work. We have to show up for our greatest love story ever told. So the question is, and how much love can we know? How much good can we know, as Ernest said? How much love can we know is going to be related to how much do you really believe you are currently participating in the greatest love story the world has ever known? Do you really believe that right now you are participating in the greatest love story ever told? That level of belief is going to be reflected in how we live and what we experience. But the gift has already been given. The love has already been given. So I'm reminded as we go into prayer, what was said before we went into meditation yesterday was that no matter how much we love this divine presence, it loves us so much more. So we say, I'm in the greatest love story ever told. We show up with patience, repetition, intensity, consistency. That presence is just saying 1,000 times yes, 1,000 times yes, 1,000 times yes. You say, yes, I believe this is the story I am participating in today, and I guarantee you are going to start feeling the yes from that divine presence today, in this moment, if you're open and saying yes, because it's saying a yes to you 1,000,000 times over, infinitely over, right now. So let's pray. Let's pray from that place. From this place that knows that we know that we know that there is a divine presence that does not come and go. There is a divine love that is always there. It never disappears. There's not different types of love, by the way. There's not platonic love and family love and romantic love. There's only one love. There's only one love. This greatest love story ever told, and it then infuses every relationship we're in, everything that we are doing, our work life, our creative life, our financial life, our physical health, our emotional health. This love becomes everything. It is all consuming. It is the most extraordinary way to live, is to live in this grand, great, glorious love story of which we are the center and there is no circumference. We are this love's divine beloved. Each and every one of us. We are the center of the divine love. And so we open our heart and let our heart know that it knows that it knows that there is no other love than this love. That any love we want to experience in the human realm is first sourced in, through, and as this one love. And today we choose to know that this one love is sourcing everything in our life right here and right now. That we know that this love is moving through us. It is moving through our conscious awareness. It is moving through our mind, our heart, our body, our soul. On every level and dimension of our being, we open to this all-consuming, infinite, oceanic love beyond what words could ever express. We are willing to be still and to listen. We are willing to show up day after day after day after day, to fully and completely give ourselves to this incredible love story of which is dancing in our heart right here and right now. We are willing to accept forgiveness from this divine love for all the ways that we feel less than, for the ways that we feel like we're not enough, for the ways that we may have hurt ourselves or somebody else. We are willing to allow this love beyond anything we can imagine to move through us, not of our own self, but this divine infinite love to move through us, letting us know we are forgiven now, not tomorrow, not after we've done penance, but the moment we recognize we may have hurt ourselves or somebody else, we are forgiven now. We are loved fully now. We are not held to be punished or for retribution. We are loved now. This is how powerful and extraordinary this love is now. And any place where we are holding on to somebody else, humanly, we of ourselves cannot let that go. We have things that we need to do on this human plane, but we open to this divine love that is so far beyond anything that we know, and we open and we have patience, and we have intensity, we have consistency, and we open to being a vehicle of forgiveness for other people and their limitations and their places where they may have hurt us or hurt people that we loved or just hurt people of ourselves. But we open and allow this love beyond what we could ever humanly ever imagine. We allow that love to do the work through us. We are willing to allow it to do the work through us and to heal and reveal through forgiveness. We are committed to showing up as forgiveness every day of our life, not just once in a while, not just on the big things, but every single day. We open our heart for forgiveness, genuine forgiveness that moves through us as this divine love presence, this infinite oceanic presence of love. We are the vehicles of love. We are the vehicles of the greatest consummation of pure spirit, of pure love, here and now, between the infinite and the finite, the absolute and the relative, the spiritual and the human. We are that divine consummation that is orgasmic in its bliss. We just say thank you. We accept this. We claim this, we know this, we stand in this, and we live this here and now. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit, thank you, divine love. In deep abiding joy and everlasting peace, we know what is spoken is true and it is done, and we say together, and so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.